Hey, what's going on YouTube? Son of Sanguinius here, and today we're going to be pretty much finishing our Blood Angels Tactics videos with a look at the Blood Angels Battle Company. So this is a formation in the back of the Blood Angels Codex, and although it's probably not going to be relevant for 99% of you, this will be kind of an experiment for me, as this will be basically a not only just a Tactica review, but also a review of a formation. We're going to break it down. I'm going to talk about some of the special rules, how you may go about equipping some of the units in this formation, so on and so forth. So, in case you guys haven't already guessed, this video will likely be a fairly long one, and so I just want you all to be prepared for that. Second of all, I really just want to emphasize that this is not me telling you that this is the only way to play these units and or this formation. Really all I'm just trying to do is toss some ideas around with you guys and see if we can come up with some good builds, some decent builds, and all that. And I realized that as I was sort of creating my little bullet points for this video, there is no possible way that I can go over every single bit of upgrades or possibilities or options for every single unit in this formation, and it will likely be that way, especially when we get into Angel's Blade. There just isn't. I really just don't have enough time to sit here and talk about every single different way that each one of the units can be built or kitted out or used or any of that stuff. So this will be a kind of a fairly focused build, although there will be some variety in here. And again, just to reiterate, I am not, the be-all, end-all, as far as tactics are concerned. Really, this is just my take on it, my personal, opinion. I'm always, open to some ideas. You guys have been leaving some very thoughtful comments, and I've been loving them. Keep it up. It's great. So, Just to preface this is I am not the be all end all. I am not Commander Dante by any means. I'm just putting these ideas out there. Waiting for some feedback and seeing where you guys would go with it, and how we can just sort of create better lists, create better armies, and create better tactics together. So. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. So, the Blood Angels Battle Company. This is a formation, and the formation includes one captain, one chaplain, one command squad, 6 tactical squads, 2 assault squads, 2 devastator squads, 1 death company squad, 1 dreadnought, and 1 furioso dreadnought. For special rules, there's only 3. We have the Angel's Virtue. This allows, if this formation is taken as your primary detachment, you can re-roll your Warlord trait when rolling on the Warlord traits table in the Blood Angels Codex. Cool. Objective secured. All troops units in this formation have the objective secured special rule. A unit with the special rule controls objectives even if an enemy scoring unit is within range of the objective marker, unless the enemy unit also has the special rule. Awesome. The Red Thirst. In a turn in which a model from this formation charges into combat, the model adds 1 to its initiative characteristic until the end of the assault phase. A model that has made a disordered charge receives no benefit from a turn. It receives no benefit when it makes a disordered charge from the Red Thirst. So, alright, so just looking at this, obviously this is a very heavy infantry formation. Infantry is definitely going to be the key to this formation. It's the main focus of it, and there's going to be limited vehicles. I could be wrong here, but I don't think that there's really a way to even fit like a Land Raider or anything in here. There's no Terminators, there's no Stern Guard, no Vanguard, no Sanguinary Guard, no Land Raiders, no Storm Ravens. This is this has like a lot of basic units with the exception of the Death Company in here, and the Furioso Dreadnought as well. So, starting from the top, how would I, go about, equipping these guys, and what kind of purpose would they, serve? So we start with the captain, and as I said, the captain kind of acts like a scalpel. It's, kind of like a way to remove your enemy's HQs, maybe some of their elites, possibly Lords of War, although it really depends. Obviously if it's like, a vehicle or something like that, you can just forget about it, but As far as enemy characters are concerned, the captain is the perfect fit for that. So what would I give him? Well, probably Artificer armor, if, for nothing else, just for the cool factor, but also because the captain will most likely be my warlord trait, because he is the most survivable of the two HQs that are in here. So Artificer armor, probably a power weapon, just to give him some killing power in close combat. You could go with something like a Thunderhammer, Power Fist, whichever one really suits you. Could also go with a combi weapon if you wanted to, or maybe like a Storm Shield. Either or is fine. Storm Shield if you're going for a more focused assault build with the captain. Combi weapon if you really just want to have some extra plinking power, and maybe you want an extra plasma gun in there somewhere. In addition to that, I would give him the Veritas Vitae, which is a relic. It's a relic of Baal. I believe it's 10, 15 points. Oh gosh, I should really know these things, people. Let me take a look right here. Veritas Vitae. Goodness gracious, where the hell is it? Right, well, I found it there. Hang on. Goodness gracious, I told you guys this was going to be a long one. Here I am flipping through this book. Alright. Veritas Vitae is 15 points. Alright. So, for basically an extra 15 points, you get to generate an additional strategic warlord trait in addition to what you generate normally, which is awesome. The only downside is the Veritas Vitae has to be on your warlord, which is fine because we plan on making the captain our warlord in this build anyway. And of course, we're probably going to throw the captain in the command squad, if for no other reason, just because the sanguinary novitiate there can give him feel no pain, make him just a little bit more survivable. You really don't want to just hand your opponent a warlord kill right off the bat. So that's kind of how I see the captain. Again, used to be as like a scalpel, target your enemy HQs or elites, take them out of the battle. So, now we move on to the Chaplain. Probably going to be much, much cheaper. Really just a jump pack and maybe an Inferno pistol. Maybe, if you want to give them that. And you're going to throw the Chaplain in with some Death Company. Obviously not as good as the Death Company Chaplain. Again, like I said, this formation really isn't relevant as far as modern games of 40k are concerned. But, if you just want to do something a little bit fluffy, you want to, create your own, company. It is kind of cool to field, a whole company of guys. But regardless, Chaplain, Jump Pack, Inferno Pistol, maybe you're going to be, with some Death Company, boost those guys up a little bit, and we'll talk more about how best to use the Death Company a little bit later on. So moving back to the command squad, the captain's going to be with them, and as I mentioned before, with all the close combat units in the Blood Angels army list, it's kind of pointless to kit out command squads for close combat. Although in this particular case, you could probably do that, as really the only other close combat units in here are the assault squads and the Death Company, as far as that goes. So, in this particular context, you probably could, kit out the command squad for close combat if you choose to. However, I would still opt to give them, basically as many special weapons as I can. Unfortunately, because of the way our command squads differ from the normal Space Marine command squads, the Sanguinary Novitiate and the Company Chaplain can't be replaced and they can't be upgraded with anything. So, really, there's just, 3 guys that can carry some special weapons, and that would probably be what I'd do. Other than that, I'd stick the captain in there, have a mini Death Star unit, and probably throw them in a Razorback just so they can get from point A to point B where they need to be, where they need to go. Drop Pod is certainly an option, although in a squad of 5 guys, if you deep strike them right next to your opponent is not going to waste any time trying to get that Warlord kill, and that would just generally be a bad move as far as I can see it. So, there we go. Now moving on to the bread and butter of this formation, the 6 tactical squads. So, there's a couple of different ways you can go about this. The first is if you run like a mechanized list. So we're talking 5 guys with the Heavy Flamer or a Melt-A-Gun inside of a basic Razorback. You could also give the Razorback a Heavy Flamer if you wanted, just for some more, Flamer template madness there. Additionally, you could pay the extra points to get something like an Assault Cannon if you want to bring Forge World into this. The Assault Cannon can definitely do some damage, and it will give, you will have, a lot of firepower. If you imagine, 6 units of tactical marines, all with, Razorbacks with assault cannons. 6 assault cannons on the tabletop is gonna definitely gonna, give your opponent a little bit of headaches, here and there. But if you don't want to do that, just the basic heavy bolter, twin-linked heavy bolter on the Razorback will be perfectly fine. So that's one way to do it if you want to go for like a more mechanized list. Alternatively, you can go for like 10 men, a 10-man squad of tactical marines with a heavy flamer and a melta-gun. This way you can assault with them if you choose to, and keep in mind Blood Angels tactical marines can assault better than any others, being that we have the Red Thirst and the Furious Charge special rules built in. So, you take 10-man tactical squad, give them a heavy flamer, melta-gun, inside a rhino. You could deck out the sergeant in either case, whether you're going with the 5-man or the 10-man. Possibly a power weapon if you plan on charging. Probably a power sword just so you get that initiative bonus at AP3. Some things to think about. Regardless, you could also put them in drop pods. Just for like a deep strike heavy army. I realize that is an option with a lot of these things. However, I did not focus on these things simply because without Commander Dante, the deep strike thing can be kind of iffy, and really, as I said, at the beginning of this video, they're just I can't really go over every single possible option that you could take. So as I said, we're gonna try and keep this a little bit more focused. So there we go. Tactical squads, mechanized or, otherwise, 5 or 10 men, heavy flamer or melta-gun, or if you're going 10 man, heavy flamer and melta-gun. Inside a rhino or inside a Razorback, you have the option to assault with them, considering the melta-gun and the heavy flamer are both assault weapons. It's awesome. So now moving on to the assault squads, you can kind of use them in two different ways. You could keep them in the backfield and use them as interceptors to intercept your enemy's troop choices and hopefully take them out, or you can deep strike them, in this current build. Chances are you're going to have 5 men with jump packs. You could go with 2 flamers, 2 meltas, or one of either, and maybe a sergeant with a power weapon, so on and so forth. With the flamers, obviously going to be some anti-infantry firepower that might actually work pretty well with the interceptor concept, or whatever, moving up, eliminating your enemy's troop choices, and then charging in, finishing them off. That's awesome. Or you could use them as kind of like an anti-armor role with the 2 melta guns and maybe an inferno pistol on the sergeant. You can also give melta bombs to the sergeant as well, so not only can you shoot 3 melta shots, but you can also charge in, get that melta bomb off, and basically annihilate any vehicle that they charge in. So you can do that. Either or, it's great. So moving on, now we hit the 2 Devastator squads. Obviously, you're probably going to want to stick to 5 men just to try and keep the points down, because once you start giving these guys all these heavy weapons, the points cost just climbs, exponentially. So missile launchers, for balance, going back to my Devastator Tactics video, missile launchers for a balance of anti-armor and anti-infantry fire power, and, their templates, so, they can certainly cover a lot of guys there. Plasma cannons for, some good templates if you want to be, if you want to, affect infantry and, anti-armor. Again, awesome. It's probably going to do more damage in the missile launcher, which is why it's a little bit more expensive. Or if you really want to focus on anti-vehicle with the best range, las cannons are definitely the way to go. Keep these guys in the backfield, lay down some fire support, and make sure that they have some decent cover. Alrighty, we're chugging right along through here. Next, we hit the Death Company squad. Now, normally I like to run Death Company squad small, but in this particular context, considering we're only going to bring 1, I would recommend just full-out 10-man 10-man Death Company squad. Just kit it out, any way you want to. I think I briefly mentioned this in my Death Company video. You got 1 Thunderhammer or Power Fist, as you guys mentioned, because Concussive doesn't affect a unit, it affects a model, so a little less useful, except when dealing with monstrous creatures, but be that as it may, you can go with per 5 Death Company Marines, 1 Thunderhammer or Power Fist, 1 Power Sword, or they can't take Lightning Claws, so yeah, Power Sword, and then maybe a Plasma Pistol in there if you want that. So for 10 men it'd be 2 Power Fists, 2 Power Swords, and maybe a Plasma Pistol or 2. Hey, if you're going to get Plasma anyone, it might as well be the guys with Feel No Pain. So, these guys are going to be jumping along with their jump packs with the Chaplain, either leading a charge, just kind of like the Spearhead. They are going to be, a little bit resilient to sort of take the hits, so that way the rest of your army can maneuver and take those objectives. Or you can exploit an opening in your opponent's line, so you could send these guys around the flank of the table and basically, just sort of. If you imagine, just sort of black tide or whatever sweeping its way across the table from one side to the other side, you're obviously going to want to exploit any gaps in your opponent's line. You could also use them in a deep strike fashion, deep strike them in. Obviously, don't deep strike them in front of your opponent's army. They're just going to get shot to pieces. However, if you deep strike them strategically in a good location where they can, proceed to get into close combat, by turn 3 at the very latest, that will definitely be awesome. Alternatively, you could also use, drop pods, like I said again, for these guys. However, just to try and narrow the scope down of this video, we're gonna go with sort of the jump pack deep striking options there. So for dreadnoughts, we have two of them in this formation. We have the regular dreadnought and the Furioso dreadnought. For the regular dreadnought, I would say the last cannon and missile launcher approach, just for that much needed anti-vehicle support, especially in this formation. Aside from Meltaguns and Inferno pistols, you can go with some anti-armor stuff with the Devastator squads. That is true. However, I would kit out the dreadnought with the last cannon and missile launcher just to have a little bit more anti-vehicle fire support. Plus, the missile launcher can cause some damage to some infantry too. It does have various. I think it's like two different profiles. It's a similar frag profile and like a crack profile basically. So that's what I did with the regular dreadnought. The Furioso dreadnought, I would give the frag cannon with the heavy flamer. That means it's basically going to have 3 flamer templates in the shooting phase, and it can still charge since both of those are assault. They're going to be, chances are the Furioso dreadnought, I'd put it in a drop pod, and it would probably support the Death Company when it deep strikes in. So, you're going to have, a mini Death Star as far as, the Death Company squad with the Furioso dreadnought supporting it. You can basically, deep strike in somewhere, in your opponent's flank, or somewhere where your opponent has, kind of like the weakest part of their line. You deep strike in, maybe you do some flaming stuff, maybe you do some shooting, that's okay. Your opponent scrambles to react or whatever. Meanwhile, the rest of your army is pushing up 12 inches in all their fast transports, jump packs, whatever it have you. Your Devastators are targeting your enemies, transports or other vehicles. Your dreadnought is probably taking out, some more of their vehicles. Tactical Marines are probably, shooting out of their hatches if they're in the Rhino, or the Razorback is laying down some fire on your enemy's troops. Assault Marines, they're either going to deep strike, in the next turn, or they're going to be, just sort of sitting back waiting to intercept any enemy troops that do manage to make it through the barrage of fire into your deployment zone, so on and so forth. You get the idea. So, overall, what do I think of the Blood Angels Battle Company? Well, it should be stated that this is not competitive in any way, shape, or form. Aside from having objectives secured, everything else is pretty much bare bones here. And honestly, I really don't see myself ever taking this except for a thematic, fluffy, kind of, second kind of cool kind of list here. This is, an infantry-focused army with an emphasis on fast movement, rapid fire, and assault. And that's cool. I think that the Blood Angels Battle Company does sort of embody, what Blood Angels are all about with, the fast-moving units, both, jump infantry and transports. You got some cool dreadnoughts in there. You got the Death Company coming in, smashing in. You got a captain, you got a chaplain, you got a command squad. It's cool, it's fluffy, it's thematic. It can be effective, however, this is certainly for larger point games. I mean, with like 6 tactical squads, decking them out the way that I said, that's at least, off the top of my head, that's at least going to be, 1,000 points, 1,200 points, something like that. So, at the very least, you're looking at, maybe 2,000 points, bare minimum, if you didn't really upgrade anything. The maximum, can be whatever, but chances are this is a 3,500 point formation, at its most effective. So, anyway, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. I'm curious to hear any feedback on this formation review. Please feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know how this was. I'm also curious to see, what you guys would do, how you guys would kit out the squads in this formation. So, anyway, that is all I have on the Blood Angels Battle Company. Again, feel free to leave a comment down below. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.